and welcome to another YouTube video. My name is Grace Amoka. I'm a proud Nigerian teacher who loves to share life, my journey on how I got into the teaching profession, what that has looked like, how I've come to the place where impact, income, purpose, profits can all sit in the same sentence. And today's video is very special because I guess the question many times why I left my engineering profession to become a classroom teacher. That's for those that even know that I have an engineering badge to my name. Yeah. So, as every typical Nigerian child, I grew up, went to primary school, secondary school. So after secondary school, you are supposed to go to the university. At least that's the normal, progression for us in this part of the world. And I remember my dad saying, "Oh, what do you want to do?" And honestly, I did not know what I wanted to study in life. I'm not one of those Tiger Woods people that said, "Oh, the father noticed when he was 2 years old that he was good at, playing something." No, that wasn't my own case. So my dad and I went through the JAM brochure, and JAM is Joint Admissions Matriculation Board, which is a compulsory examination that you take for you to move from secondary to the university or higher institution generally. And because I was a science student, which is a flawed way of even deciding who goes into the sciences and the arts, after our GSS3, which is like junior class going into senior, they said those that had good results automatically went into the sciences, and those that the results were not too great, they went to art, which is, I don't want to start to talk about the flaws in our educational system, but that was obviously a flawed way of thinking about how to guide students on what career choice to make. So I ended up in sciences, and then when it was time to decide what I wanted to study in university, I went through the list. In this part of the world, if you're in sciences, you are either going to be a doctor or an engineer. Every other thing is not very consequential. So, and I never really liked anything that had to do with the medicine. My mom is in the medical line, but I just never fancied being a medical doctor or any other profession in that field. That left me with engineering. So I remember us literally going through the pages and looking at all the different fields in engineering. And my dad would be like, "Oh, what do you think about mechanical?" I'm like, "Mechanical sounds too aggressive. I want soft life." So mechanical was not going to be for me. Chemical engineering, I didn't really do well in chemistry. And because it sounded like chemistry, I'm like, my life is not going to end up well. Civil engineering, at the time, all I knew about civil engineering was building constructions and things like that. I'm just like, I don't think I want sunburn for the rest of my life. And then computer engineering came up, and I'm just like, sounds interesting. So I picked what to study in school because it sounded interesting. That was it, So I'm just like, oh, computer engineering sounds nice. It sounds like fun, and that was it. So I picked computer engineering as my first and second choice, and I arrived in the university. I didn't do badly because, I have a good brain in my head. So graduated with a second class upper, and I think in my third year, there was a lot of conversations about networking. So I got Cisco certified, guys. So I got my CCNA and then started on my CCNP. So CCNP at the time used to have three, what's it called? Like 3 stages. So there was the T-shoot was the last one. There was the routes, yes, and something else I can't even remember. Yeah, so I got the first one. But then after graduating 5 years in the university and coming out, the kind of school I went to, just to give you a background, they talked about purpose a lot. Hebron, the birthplace of kings and queens. So imagine spending 5 years in a place where it's about what you can do to make a difference in the world. It's about how you don't have to think small, and things like that. So after graduating, I'm just like, what do I really, really, really want to do with my life? And I went into my NYSC year really thinking and praying about it. And NYSC is the National Youth Service Corps, which is a 1-year compulsory program that every Nigerian graduate has to go through, where they send you to a state to serve your country for 1 year. So the year that I had my NYSC was the year the federal government, one of those years the federal government said all graduates had to go into the classrooms to teach. And while my other colleagues were upset about it, because everybody already had plans, they wanted to work in banks, in Shell, Mobil, and all those other oil companies, I found a sort of excitement that I couldn't explain at the time. And I remember showing up in school every day. I was bubbly, looking for how to help the students. Because I was younger than most of the teachers there, they could relate with me in many ways. So some of the sessions that I thoroughly enjoyed were just having conversations about life, what are your plans in life, and things like that. Then there was this young man that, had his NYSC in that same school where I was working and transitioned into being a full-time employee. That was the first time I realized that everybody wasn't paid the same salary. It was based on the value you were bringing and your negotiating power. So this young man, he was the youngest teacher. His classes were the most vibrant. So at the time, the school was experimenting with 80 minutes class periods. One period was a full 80 minutes. And during observation, so I would sit in the classes to watch how these teachers were doing their thing. His classes were full of energy and life from start to finish. And I was just blown away. Of course, automatically we became friends. And one time we were having the conversation about how he ended up teaching. And I asked him, how did you get stuck teaching? And he looked at me like, no, stuck isn't the word. And he narrated how, since he was 8 years old, he knew that he wanted to be a teacher. Oh my God. That moment in time is one of the defining moments for me in my transitioning from engineering into full-time classroom teaching. And he went on to say how, he had an imaginary score sheet for his students and he would tabulate their scores and things like that. It transported me back to a time in my own life when my younger sister and I, we would have these imaginary classrooms, and we even had names for our students. 3 of the ones I remember till tomorrow were Abachi, Ikemu, and Basange. I don't know where we got the names from, but we had those imaginary students. And at the time, all we knew about our teachers were they used the cane a lot. So we would, flog our students in class, and things like that. And as this young man was narrating his dream and his passion and how he knew for sure that this is what he wanted to do for the rest of his life, it felt like someone gave me the approval and the validation to start to think, could this be? So that was the first defining moment. The second defining moment was my CDS, and CDS is Community Development Service. So you're doing like your full-time primary place of assignment work in one place, and then you have a community development service unit that you belong to. So the one I belong to, we used to go to this public school and provide computer training services for them and things like that. While the school I was in was a private, one of the top 10 schools in Lagos at the time, the school where I was doing my CDS, it was a school where the students couldn't even afford 1,500 naira for school fees. And that was the first time I came into the knowledge of education inequity. Of course, at the time, I couldn't articulate words to say that it had a name, but that was another defining moment for me. I started to think about how I could make a difference in the education sector, because obviously there were challenges in our education system in my country, and I wanted to be part of the solutions. But there was a problem. I knew from experience, teachers were poor. Teachers didn't have money. All my secondary school teachers are still alive, so they most likely will stumble on this video. I wanted to give an example of a particular teacher that I knew who used to put money, and like 5 naira in his socks. And they just didn't look good. They weren't living the kind of life that I thought that I wanted to live. So that was a challenge. But then I took it back to God. Many times the way that we see God is, and just to give you perspective, we say things like, I'm looking for my purpose. And you go from reading Purpose Driven Life for 40 days you move to The Power of Purpose. And after reading all those books, you still will not find your purpose. And that is saying subconsciously that you have a father, God, that is intentionally hiding your purpose somewhere. It's like, let me show this girl Pepe. No, that's not the kind of God that we serve. So when you ask God for something, believe that he has heard and he will answer. And that was the approach that I took. I was praying to know, what do you want me to do with my life? And then all these defining moments were happening on the other hand. So putting everything together, I took it back to him. I'm just like, God, as much as I told you I don't really know what I want to do, I shall know that I don't want to be broke all the rest of my life, so how are we going to work this out? And not by coincidence, I started to get into the world of business, and then I got a scholarship to Lagos Business School to get an entrepreneurial certificate in entrepreneurial management, I started going for trainings and just got into that world of business. And that was the first time it occurred to me that I could use the resources I was getting from what I could do well to fund my passion, which was education. So no, I didn't take a deep dive to say, oh, we're going to save the world and do this education thing, because I wanted to be a teacher with a difference. I didn't want to come into the sector and embrace all of the status quo of what I was familiar with. The question on my lips every time is, how can we cut off all of these limitations? How can we redefine the narratives? How can we say no to the status quo that we have met in the education sector? And one of the ways God started to show me that this could happen was seeing the business side of my work as a teacher. Yeah. So the experience I have from my engineering degree, the experience in entrepreneurship, and then now being a teacher in the classroom, all of these things have come together to help me to rethink what education should look like. Taking a quick break to shout out to our sponsors for today, Multimedia Studios. It's a media and film production company. Many times in our lives, we're afraid to take that giant step of either living a job that doesn't serve us anymore, or just doing what our hearts really want to do. And I can understand that fear, because the truth is I had my fears as well, moving from engineering to classroom teaching, because you had people that would say things like, computer engineer, you can work anywhere that you want, you will liberate your family from poverty. My family has never really been in poverty, but you get the point. Yeah. One of the things that has helped me is having a logical outlook to the decisions that I make. Of course, there's a spiritual angle. There's also having a systematic way of analyzing and thinking about certain things. A concept that I've come to fall in love with is the Japanese concept of Ikigai, which helps you to think about, what do I want my life's purpose to look like? What do I want my assignments to look like? And you can't just stop at the place of, I'm passionate. I didn't say, I'm so passionate about teaching, and then I sat there being that poor, miserable teacher. No. So the Ikigai concept has 4 essential areas. There is what you're passionate about. That's what you love to do. What are you good at? So the fact that you're passionate about something, are you good at it? Then what does the world need? So if you're passionate about something and you're good at it, well, the world doesn't give a about it. You need to think about it more deeply. And then finally, what are people willing to pay for? So where these 4 things meet, the center, the Japanese call it a reason for living, kind of like your purpose, and even though I don't subscribe 100% to that being the core of your purpose, there's some sense in it. So go through that process. Whether you're currently a teacher in the classroom or you're transitioning out, one of the things I take my clients through is this concept of the Ikigai, in thinking about how can I have more streams of income? How can I increase my own personal economy? We go through that process of saying, write out all the things that you're good at. And many times our adult brains, we're thinking of something very, very strong, saving the world and flying to the moon. No, basic things. What are you good at? Are you a creative person? And your creativity can show in very little ways. How you style your hair, how you pick out your outfits. That's something you're good at. Then we start to think, how can we transfer this same skill to other areas? So what am I good at? Have a comprehensive list. What does the world need? You can do a bit of research, ask people around you. One of the things that I do, I ask my friends, if you were to learn something from me, what would it be? When the name Grace Amoka comes to mind, what's the first thing that you think about? It helps me to introspect and see the areas, some of my blind spots that I'm not paying attention to. It helps me also see what are the opportunities that may exist. Yeah. So what you love to do, what you're good at, what the world needs, and what people are willing to pay you for. Before you start designing your logo and building a website and doing all those fancy things on the surface, find your first 3 clients. And you can do that by, having conversations around what it is you want to do, and then see if there are people that are willing to put money. See, if someone puts money down on something, their interest may not be, very justifiable. Yeah. And I hope that helps you. Please share this video with someone that needs it. I know a teacher around you that is struggling with making, life-changing decisions. This may be something that would help them to think through how to take the next steps. Drop a comment. If you have any questions, you can drop them as well. I'd be delighted to respond to all of your questions and comments. See you in the next one.